when a role almost destroys an actor's entire life. Method acting, masterful immersion, or a double-edged blade cutting into the mind. Have you ever watched a movie and become so obsessed with a character that you forgot it was just acting? Some performances aren't simply performed. They make the audience feel like they're watching a real human being living right in front of them. Real pain, real rage, real eyes, real darkness. And we call that a great performance. But there's a question very few people dare to ask. If creating a performance that feels so real, it's terrifying, requires the actor to trade away sleep, mental stability, relationships, even their own safety. Is that still art? Or is it a kind of self-destruction we've learned to praise in today's video? We're diving into the dark side of method acting. An extreme approach where actors don't just play the character, they become the character. Not only while the camera is rolling, but even after the camera stops. And the scariest part is this: when immersion goes on long enough, the brain can start confusing the role with a real person. The boundaries weaken, identity blurs, relationships crack, sleep collapses, and substance dependence can emerge as a coping mechanism. We're going to explore several well-known cases. Daniel Day-Lewis, who lived as his characters for months, sometimes years. Jim Carrey, who lost his sense of self while playing Andy Kaufman. Val Kilmer, where authenticity raises an ethical question. Does being real justify harming others? James Gandolfini, who carried the weight of Tony Soprano until real life began to fracture. And Heath Ledger, the most mythologized story, yet the truth is colder than the myth. And by the end of this video, I want you to answer one question for yourself. If a role becomes immortal, but the human who created it is destroyed, was the price worth it? What is method acting, and why can it be dangerous? Method acting isn't simply deep acting in the usual sense. It often begins with an extreme belief. Emotion can't be faked convincingly. If you want to portray pain, you must truly feel pain. Traditional actors rely on technique, voice, physicality, emotional memory, expression, psychological control. They turn the role on when filming starts and turn it off when the scene ends. But method actors often reject that boundary. They believe the character isn't something you perform, it's something you live. And here's where the problem begins. If you live as another identity for long enough, the brain adapts. It starts treating the character as an available self. The material describes this with one word: dissociation, a separation from a stable sense of who you are. In the short term, it can fuel explosive creativity. But over time, it can turn into a crisis: emotional instability, broken relationships, poor sleep, rising anxiety, increased risk of substances just to get through yourself. And the most painful part is this: the industry often rewards extremity. Awards praise money. Everything reinforces the illusion that the more you suffer, the more authentic you are. Daniel Day-Lewis. Lewis, a genius who survived because he knew when to disappear. When people talk about method acting, they almost automatically mention Daniel Day-Lewis. He didn't prepare for roles, he moved into them. In My Left Foot, he played Christy Brown, a writer with cerebral palsy. To immerse himself, he didn't just research, he spent time around people living that reality. And once filming began, he stayed in a wheelchair the entire time, never stepping out of character. The crew had to feed him, carry him from place to place, and he spoke only as Christy Brown. On screen, brilliant. Off-screen, exhausting, even unsettling for those around him. And he kept going, building a 17th century style life while filming The Crucible, refusing to eat unless he hunted in The Last of the Mohicans, maintaining the mindset of a lonely, ruthless man in There Will Be Blood. But there's one key difference that helped him survive. He knew how to retreat. Between films, he vanished. For months, sometimes years. He didn't stack roles back to back. He gave himself time to rebuild his identity. The material calls it not comfort, but survival. And here's the first warning. Method acting doesn't always kill you, But if you don't know how to exit the role, it can slowly erase you from yourself. Jim Carrey, when a role replaces the real person. If Daniel Day-Lewis represents discipline to survive, Jim Carrey represents something even more frightening: losing your anchor. In Man on the Moon, Jim Carrey played Andy Kaufman, a performer who loved erasing the boundary between real and fake. And Jim believed that to do it right, he had to erase Jim Carrey before the camera rolled. He publicly said he felt Andy Kaufman's presence guiding him, as if Kaufman were communicating with him and influencing his choices. On set, he wouldn't let anyone call him by his real name. He only responded to Andy Kaufman or Tony Clifton. He became unpredictable, disrupted production, and was sometimes hostile toward the crew. And what makes this story chilling is that it stopped being an artistic tactic. The material frames it like psychological surrender, where the character no longer influences the actor. The character replaces the actor. After the film, Jim walked out, but not the same person. He began speaking about how the ego is an illusion, how personality is just a role humans cling to. Maybe it's philosophy, or maybe it's the mind protecting itself after being stretched too far. And the lesson here is clear. Method acting can produce a performance so convincing that even the actor doesn't know who is being convinced. Val Kilmer. When authenticity becomes an excuse to cross lines. The material raises a crucial issue. Most audiences rarely think about authenticity as never a valid excuse to cause harm. Val Kilmer played Jim Morrison, a genius, but also famously unstable, aggressive, and boundary-breaking. Kilmer trained intensely voice behavior movements, every detail. But then he went further. He began living as Morrison, carrying recklessness, volatility, and disregard for boundaries into real life. This is where the ethical controversy explodes. The material mentions accusations of harmful behavior toward others during auditioning training. And even if details vary depending on perspective, one thing is hard to ignore: in extreme immersion environments, excessive behavior can be justified with one phrase: "I did it for the role." When that happens, responsibility blurs. People hesitate to intervene. The actor's suffering is labeled commitment, while others' discomfort is treated as collateral damage. This is the dark side audiences don't see. They only see the final performance, not the chaos used to create it. James Gandolfini being praised for becoming what you fear. If there's a character both legendary and toxic, it's Tony Soprano. Tony is a crime boss, but not the cool kind. He's violent, manipulative, fragile, and constantly at war with himself. To make Tony feel real, Gandolfini didn't perform the surface. He absorbed Tony's contradictions into his own emotional system. At first, he only stayed in character between takes. But as the character grew darker, the process became more extreme, intentionally depriving himself of sleep, overeating to reflect Tony's self-destructive habits, even inflicting pain to trigger anger before scenes. And then the cost arrived. The material says he struggled with substance issues not for pleasure, but as a way to cope. Production was disrupted. Interventions happened. But he resisted because he believed stopping would weaken the character. The deepest tragedy is Gandolfini wasn't Tony in real life. Friends described him as kind and generous, and he was disturbed by how audiences idolized Tony. Imagine that feeling. Being praised, celebrated, worshipped for becoming something your moral compass finds horrifying. The material calls it a psychological tension very few people can survive. Over time, the role ate him. Health, marriage, personal life all began to collapse. Heath Ledger. The truth behind the myth. The Joker role killed him. Heath Ledger and the Joker is the most repeated story and one of the most misunderstood. The material is very clear. There is no medical evidence that Joker drove him insane, but there's still a brutal lesson here. Ledger isolated himself in a hotel room for weeks, testing voices, movements, posture, keeping a journal filled with dark images and thoughts to understand the character. On set, he's pushed his body to extremes, throwing himself into walls demanding more realism, refusing to soften the role. The Joker on screen alive. Terrifying. Not like acting. But the issue was elsewhere. Ledger had battled insomnia for years, even before the film, and relied on prescribed medication to cope. After finishing Joker, he jumped immediately into another heavy role without rest, something experienced method actors usually avoid. The official conclusion: accidental overdose from a dangerous combination of legally prescribed medications. And the material ends this section with a knife-sharp line. When deep immersion combines with physical exhaustion and chemical dependence, it becomes a lethal combination. He didn't die because he played Joker. He died because he couldn't exit the psychological and physical state in time before forcing himself to carry more, drawing the line between dedication and self-destruction. Method acting has produced some of the greatest performances in film history. That's undeniable. But when you connect these stories, a pattern repeats: extreme immersion, identity dissolving, psychological strain, long-term damage. Daniel Day-Lewis survived by disappearing to recover. Jim Carrey walked out, but not whole. Val Kilmer raised the ethical question: can art justify harming others? Gandolfini carried Tony until real life broke. Ledger didn't rest, and the outcome was irreversible. And there's a painful truth. The entertainment industry often glorifies suffering as proof of authenticity. Audiences praise actors for disappearing into the role, but rarely ask the most important question: how do they come back? In the end, the question isn't whether method acting creates art. The question is a performance worth it if the person who created it gets destroyed?